Oh god. Ooh, new music. Yeah, the aftermath. Yeah, this is new music. Oh, yeah. The score itself tells quite a story at the moment. Oh god. Oh. It's like boss music, in a sense. Look at this aura, man. Look at it.
ピトーにはゴンの言葉は全く耳に入らず、頭の中は現状をいかに乗り切り、王の命を全うするか、全細胞がその回答に向かって働いていた。小麦を守る。何としても。
Protect her like your own. Whoa. Yeah, this feels so different.
一歩引いて見ていたキルアが。
Go on, Killua. Come on, put it together.
なぜ敵である俺たちを目の前にして臨戦態勢に入らない。わずかなオーラすらまとっていない。あれじゃ裸と同じ。
Think back to Grandpa Zeno.
勝てると思っているのか。オーラに頼らなくても。いや、ありえない。ゴンがみなぎらせているオーラは以前とは違う。
Yeah, this is something else.
いかにピトーでも。Whoa.
A new unknown. Yeah. He's had this feeling for some time now. Yeah. Ooh. Ah. Mama bear. Fox bear. That is iconic right there. Yeah, he got there. Killua putting it together is one thing, but Gon, it's a different story, man. Yeah, he put it together. Look at that. Oh my god, the dramatic irony of this is too much. Gon doesn't understand. He doesn't realize it. He thinks she's hurting her. He's too dialed in. That notion of the unmovable force. Unstoppable force, rather. Look at that. Submitting. I'm at your mercy. Look at this. My god. Think back to episode 85, Neferpitoa, and then I posed no threat. Makes sense, right? Given his assassin background. The tension is just immense at the moment. This is... Yeah, I'm afraid for Neferpito and Komugi. Holy shit, look at this. The character acting animation here is incredible. No outlet, no release. This is it, Killua. You've been thinking about this. Yeah. Not to injure a civilian.
おそらくこの女こそ
The unknown, the third party he kept thinking
俺た
about
ちの誰も存在を知らなかった
Killua
第
Zoldyck,
三者
man.
これもおそらくだけど自らを傷つけることになった
Yeah,
原因
He's filled in the
な
blanks.
ぜ王はそんな異常な行動をそれは彼女が王にとって特別だから彼女は今壊されているんじゃない王の命令で直されてるんだ
だがその事実はゴンにとって
Yeah, can you convince Gon though?
与えないことをキルアは痛感していた。
Hmm.
なんて言えば
You've got to do something, Killua. Oh my god, look at this imagery though.
何でも言うことを聞くからだから待ってくれ僕はどうしてもこの人を助けなくちゃいけないんだ
I know how Gon is going to react to this. You kind of go back to the Phantom Troop angle.
助け
Mm.
助け何何でもお前の言う何でもってキルは俺が聞いてるんだ
Oh my god.
助けなくちゃって何
She knows it's a delicate situation, man.
極限まで張り詰めた空気の中でピトーが選択した答えは
この人は僕の大切な方が大切にしている人です
Friend of a friend is a friend of
偽
mine.
らないことであった。
Loosely a similar
この
sentiment
人
to
がいたから
Ikalgo.
王は王にこの人がいなくなったら
Hmm.
王は王でなくなる
Look at this. Her understanding of the situation is just incredible.
だから僕は彼女が助かればそれでいいだから待ってくれ
No. Oh.
助けたいってこと助けなくちゃって助けるってこと
Oh god. He's thinking about Kite in that moment. Yeah, it's similar to the Phantom Troop. Oh my god. Oh no. Wow. Megumi Han. Iconic performance already.
ゴンちょっと待て
Okay. Reel him back in
その
somehow.
子を傷つけたのはおそらく俺たちの方だじっちゃんのドラゴンダイブそれで
Hmm.
人が今その子を治療してるっていうのも多分本当だだから待とう治療が終わるまでおそらく多分おそらく多分で待つって待った後でこいつが俺の
This
望み
thing.
通りにするってのもまたおそらくかおそらく多分本当ふざけるなふざけんなよ
Holy shit.
どうかしてんじゃないのかこんなやつの言うこと信じるのか信じられるわけないだろ
Oh. An arm for an arm, eh? Life and limb. Look at her. Everything's on the line.
望むならば右腕もそれでも足りなければ両の足も
Oh my god. This is not the situation, the scene he was expecting to walk into, man. Yeah, oh my god, look at this. He's struggling. He's struggling with this change, this compassion coming out of this monster. Oh my god.
ずるいぞピッチャーなんでそいつばっかりカイトにはあんなひどいことしたくせにゴンなんでだよなんでだよ
It's doing a number on him, man. He's just not equipped to handle this. He's in such an emotionally compromised state at the moment.
ふざけるな
Oh my god. Killua, you're gonna have to jump in.
そいつ殺したらカイトは元に戻らねえぞ
He's trying everything to get him, pull him from the brink. Look at this aura, man. He was more than ready to kill Komugi as well.
キルアはいいよね冷静でいられて
Oh no.
関係ないから
It's a dagger to the heart,
てめえがテンパってるから言ってやってんだ
holding it in.
自分で最初に言ったの忘れたのかよカイトを取り戻すんだろしっかりしろやってめえ
Wow, this animation though. And the lack of score, so effective. The silence is deafening.
ああもう大丈夫
No, you're not. Look at that.
時間はどれだけ待てばいい
Hmm.
完全に回復させるには3、4時間はかかると思う
That's a long time, yeah. Maybe 2 hours, he might allow that.
1時間あれば重大な危機を乗り切れるところまでは直せるお願いだ頼む1時間したら俺と一緒にペイジンへ行こう
Tail kite.
カイトを元に戻してもらう約束するか必ず
Yeah, she'll promise anything at the moment. She knows she can't bring that man back.
1時間ここで待
I've
つ
seen that pose before in this anime. Oh. Killua's gone. That's I mean, all-timer, of course. That's incredible. Okay, Hunter x Hunter episode 116. I mean, incredible, staggering episode. It really is. I'm floored. I mean, yeah, of course, there's some expectation, given the setup in the last episode's conclusion, but this is just wow. I mean, I did not see this type of episode coming up. It's a showcase. It's an absolute showcase. And, I'll begin the whole thing by saying that, some work of arts are important for their aesthetic qualities, right? They just are, for their beauty and complexity and innovation, for their capacity to shake things up, right? And elicit creative and critical thought. And also for their experimentation, right? Anime as a medium is all of that. It can be all of that. The capacity is there. At its highest level, all of that is present. It can be present. And this episode right here is a showcase of that. It's a reminder of that. This is a prime example of how, this medium can, stand shoulder to shoulder with anything else, right? Be it film, be it live action television, because ultimately this episode right here is just as good as anything I've seen recently, right? It's just as good as some of the best live action television episodes I've seen in my lifetime. It just is. It's as simple as that. Some things are just fact. I don't think this episode is kind of like a, subjective opinion. At the most basic level, it's a brilliant episode. There's certain elements present that are undeniable, right? That are universally understood. The writing, the direction, the directional choices, the acting itself, specifically the voice acting here, But again, I think it's up there. It's right up there. I think Megumi Han just gave a performance of a lifetime. I mean, she didn't just give it, but for me, it feels like she just gave it. A performance for the ages. It's the type of performance that is going to be attached to Hunter x Hunter from this point on, for me. I'd be shocked, but I'd be really quite excited if I got something similar to this again, right? For the rest of the anime. Because this is that good. This is that incredible, that impressive. You sit there and you're just kind of baffled at the thing that you're experiencing at the moment. I mean, the performance itself is kind of reminiscent of, a few of the other shonen protagonist performances I've seen. Some of the standout moments, be it Yuji Kaji as Eren Yeager, right? Specifically, I'm kind of thinking of the final episode of season 2 of Attack on Titan. Be it another Megumi, right? The voice actor for Shinji Ikari. But, I'm quite sure that, this performance specifically by Megumi Han is brought up quite a bit in, anime circles, specifically voice acting performances in anime episodes. And, again, this anime episode appears to be essentially one of the all-timer episodes, right? It's got to be. I'm sure it's got to be. And at this point, I can certainly say that it's of course, it's one of the best episodes of the anime, and I'd say it's on par with episodes like episode 51. I'm not able to say at the moment that it's the best. It's certainly possible that once I've done all 148 episodes, this could be the best, right? In an objective sense. But, subjectively speaking, I can't say at the moment that, I prefer this that much more than episode 51. But I'd say this episode specifically feels a bit more important to the anime as a whole, right? This kind of feels like it's been building up since day one. And, this right here is the result of it all, right? There's a lot of buildup going into this, right? A lot of undeniable, a lot of unmissable setup for this, right? I've speculated about this for quite some time. I've dreaded it. And the thing is, a lot of my talking points from last episode's discussion actually ended up being quite accurate, right? Some of my concerns, some of my predictions, I suppose, right? I completely expected Gon to be in control. In a sense, because you could also make the case that he's completely out of control, but in control, as in, he controls the room, right? He's the one in charge. And that's exactly how this played out. He's the danger in there. And, one of the craziest things about this is that both Neferpito and Killua kind of have a really similar or exact same understanding of Gon's, mental state at the moment. They both understand it's really quite delicate. I think, one of the standouts of this episode is actually Neferpito's own emotional intelligence being showcased. And both of them understood that they had to approach it accordingly, right? They had to handle the situation really quite carefully. And even then, it just threatened to boil over on multiple occasions. But ultimately, the action is not a focus of this episode. It's 3 people. Yes, Komugi is in there, but she's out, right? She's out. There's 3 really unique individuals in there, and it's all about how they deal with these emotions. Let me kind of go back to my point about the direction, the writing. Some of the directing choices are so damn impressive and effective, right? Some of the quietest moments and shots, they speak the loudest, right? Again, especially in an episode that deals with explosive rage. It's so damn impressive. At the moment, I just kind of want to go back to this episode, a few times actually. I'm sure this is the type of episode people kind of write essays about, I'm sure there's a decent amount of YouTube content on this episode and just on, Gon in general, because there's just so much to sink your teeth into, right? As far as Gon is concerned. And then, of course, everyone that's surrounding Gon as well in these moments and leading up to these moments, these inevitable moments. But yeah, going back to my point about this actually being a showcase for this medium of animation, everything just felt so purposeful, right? Evocative, expressive, You kind of go to the original score, the impactful original score, right? I spoke of the silent moments, but also at the same time, the score that's being utilized here and, essentially being introduced for the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially most of the music in here, a lot of it, especially, earlier on in the episode, is all new music. And it almost immediately established that, okay, this is a special moment. It's a big moment, right? I felt it right in the beginning, the tone of it. And then, of course, there's some familiar, music that cuts in as well later on. But yeah, the staging, the true sense of tension that it's able to establish. And yes, of course, even though Megumi Han's performance is the standout in this, let's not forget the voice acting for Neferpito. I thought that is really, really quite impressive as well. I thought Neferpito as a whole is integral to this. I mean, all three of them are integral, right? And, a little bit later on, I think I'll kind of, break it up in that manner. I'll kind of go through each one of them, right? And their role in all of this and just how things stand by the end of it for all three of them, right? Yeah, it's a great performance, man. It's a totally different type of performance, totally different side of Neferpito, right? It's the first time us, the audience, gets to see her since, that really important moment, between her and her king, right? As expected, she's protecting Komugi, who she names, right? She said her name this time. She's not the girl anymore. It's Komugi, right? Listen, maybe it's up for discussion. Maybe it's debatable if, Neferpito actually truly cares for Komugi, or if it's just as simple as, okay, my king cares about her. She's really important to my king and his identity. Just my king as a person, as an individual, and the person he's becoming, right? So just by, attachment, just by association, she's important to me, right? It could be a case of that. But I choose to believe that, since Komugi is essentially the king's beating heart, you see that someone who is, empathetic, who is compassionate, I'm speaking of Neferpito, she's picked up on it. She's understood the impact this person's had on her king. Someone really important to her, as she told the boys, or rather, she told Gon. I think, that changed her as well, her perspective. It changed everything, I think. I mean, hell, Komugi's introduction into this changed everything as a whole, right? The whole, Chimera Ant and Extermination Squad encounter, right? It all pivots around this unknown, the third party that, of course, Killua figures out, right? He fills in the blanks, as expected of Killua. He just needed a bit more information. And, this is the information that he simply did not have, right? The third party. And then, of course, his grandpa and his cryptic goodbye and, parting words. Yeah, it put him on the right track as well. It actually did end up assisting him in terms of, coming to that conclusion that, okay, this is not someone she's, butchering or anything, similar to Kite. And, how about that shot of Kite? Even though Gon's never actually seen that, right? That's his mental image of how he was tortured or butchered, right? And it's quite a freaky one, isn't it? That's the mental imagery that Gon's had for a long time that he's been holding on to, right? And visualizing, this is how she butchered him. And to go back to the technical side of things real quick, the animation. I mean, of course, the animation is some of the best I've seen in the medium, right? In my experience, at least so far. And it deserved it. It required it, right? And it's just incredible and then some. And, the runtime, really quite happy about the runtime and the allocation to this specific moment. Hell, I thought I'd get I was hoping for half an episode. I got an entire episode and it deserved it, right? It did. It's that important. And, in my discussion in the last episode, I think I stated that, this is not the type of situation you can really cut away from. Would you look at that, right? The entire thing is just based on this. Yes, I get this extensive recap. I mean, a little too extensive. And essentially it recapped things just from the past few episodes, things that are really, really fresh in my mind at the moment. So I don't know, this extensive recap felt really quite redundant, to be honest. And before I do get back into the meat of the episode, one more critique I do have is the ending coming in, right? Transitioning in. Listen, I know it's a given. It had to come in. It's just how it is. I don't even think it was an option for them to not have the ending. But I think many of us can agree that that ending right there is the type of ending that you can just kind of fade to the credits and have no music or score accompanying it, and it really would have been quite effective for the tone of it. And then, of course, speaking of those final moments, the imagery there is just haunting. It really is quite haunting. In an episode that's full of incredible art direction, incredible moments, and frames. I think I already know my thumbnail for this episode. It's got to be that. It's got to be that. The lack of Killua. And the fact that it didn't even show us Killua making his exit, right? I'll speculate a bit more about that in a bit, but that shot just into the darkness, right? We've got Gon that's dialed in, Gon that hasn't even noticed, perhaps doesn't even care in this moment about Killua being there or not being there. You see he's dialed in. You see him out of focus to the left side of the frame, and you see the thing that is really the most important thing to him at the moment, right? And behind him, absolute darkness. There's, this hole that's been left. And, this is the point I was making about some of the more silent moments being some of the loudest. But speaking of Gon, I think this is essentially a masterclass in the depiction of a seismic internal struggle, right? The depiction of an emotionally compromised state. And the thing is, as hurtful as some of these things might seem, Killua does understand, right? That he is in an emotionally compromised state. Hell, that's the reason I mentioned in the beginning, that both Killua and Neferpitou understand how delicate the situation is, right? That it threatens to just explode at any second, in a split moment. And it almost happens on a few occasions, simply based on Neferpitou's responses, her demeanor, everything she does here is the opposite of how Gon wants her to be, or needed her to be, pictured her to be, built her up to be. He needed Neferpitou to be that monster from that night in the NGL, that same monster. I've said this a few times now, but it really truly felt like everything's been paused for Gon once, Killua knocked him out. Everything's been paused, and, as expected, yeah, he kind of, picks up from that spot, doesn't he? And that included him expecting Neferpitou to be that exact same person, a villain, to lash out on, right? To smash, to just get all of this rage out, to have that release, that outlet. But it's never there. It's just not there. And that does an absolute number on this kid. But, to see Gon in this state, it's heartbreaking. It is. It's tragic. Regardless of how much setup there is for this, undeniable and unmissable setup there is for this, speculating and, kind of almost assuming that you're going to see that at some point in the anime, at some point in this arc, is one thing, but to actually see it happen, it's heartbreaking. It is. I mean, it's a complete mental and emotional breakdown. It's simply too much for him to compute at this point in his life, right? In a level-headed manner. He's not equipped for it. And I think before I go any further, I think I have to make something clear here. I think you have to approach this with a certain level of empathy, right? Before breaking it down, before laying into Gon, for his behavior. Again, selfish behavior, hypocritical behavior, perhaps contradictions in his, approach, all of that. But I just feel like, a certain level of empathy is required here, right? Listen, it's still Gon. It's still a Gon. Yes, he's at his lowest and his most dangerous and his most unpredictable, his most explosive, and all those things that all those really established characters always kind of thought about him, their initial take on him, their read on him, that, there's a monster inside. There's a monster within that young boy, that one day, it might come out. Those monstrous qualities might come out. The things that he might be capable of. And, that notion, that idea of him one day kind of becoming this unstoppable force. I'm seeing it all take place, right, on screen at this point. I mean, you go back to things Bisky had to say. You go back to things Razor had to say, right? Wing, Zepile, all of them, right? Genthru, Hisoka, right? Hisoka, he probably understood this before anyone, really. So yeah, of course, it's all been there. The setup is there. It has been there. I think, it's something I focused on quite a bit in my run for this anime, right? Gon's nature and the things he could be capable of and is capable of. I've seen glimpses of it, right? Of his behavior, his approach, his selfish attitude, or his selfish approach. But yeah, I feel like something like this still has to be approached with a level of empathy, right? At the end of the day, he's a kid who is not equipped to handle this. This is his first experience with this kind of loss, right? And, he thought he could kind of, I don't know, function, or he can kind of handle it, because in his head, he kind of built it up as, okay, it's almost as if, it's this transactional thing, basic input and output. I'll go there, I'll come across a monster, I'll channel all of my, hatred, all of my vengeance and all of that into smashing that monster, right? And then getting kite back. To him, it's really quite transactional, really quite simple, right? But life is not simple, right? Gon's ideas can be simple, right? Binary almost, but, ultimately his understanding of the Chimera ants is, the things that they're capable of and the things that, Neferpito is capable of are monstrous. And he just left it at that, right? Everything's paused at that. Gon doesn't know about, their capacity, the humanity within, right? The rapid evolution that I've seen as an audience member. I mean, again, dramatic irony is at play. And, you have to take that into account. These characters don't know everything like us, the audience, right? Killua, he has to, I'm saying he has to remain level-headed, and that's the reason he kind of puts it all together anyways, but that's just in his nature. But like I said during the episode, Killua figuring it out is one thing, but Killua trying to explain to Gon is another situation altogether, and he knew this, right? You see that he struggles. He's like, how do I approach this? What exactly do I tell him? Because you see, ultimately, once Killua does inevitably step in, and of course he was always going to step in to stop him, to be that tether, to, pull him back from the brink. He does it on a few occasions in this one, right? But, by the end of it, you see that he's not there anymore. So I don't know, man. Again, I'll have a segment of next steps and expectations and predictions and all of that. But, I don't know if Killua can, keep that on. How long Killua can hang in there and pull him back. Because Killua understood that, there's a real danger here of him completely losing, his friendship. One of the most important people in his life, the most important. Actually, no. I made that mistake before as well. I think there's others. There's that missing sibling that I do believe it means quite a bit to Killua. But again, it's really quite bizarre that there's been no mention of that sibling that he is holding hands with. Right. And just based on that, I've always just kind of felt that, there's an interesting and loving relationship there. But, going back to the friendship aspect, beyond that, he knew if he just lets Gon act out on all of these impulses and just, lash out, Gon might lose himself forever. And he's going to end up doing things that he's going to regret for the rest of his life. Right. Things you can't, walk back on. He stopped him from actually legitimately, killing Komugi, right? She wasn't the immediate target, but, just through proximity, she would have died. And Gon understood that as well. He knew his Jajenkin could take out both of them. It's crazy. He actually took that step. That's just the fact of the matter. He took that step. He was ready to execute. I don't think anyone can argue against that. That's how far he did end up going. And again, Killua had to step in and stop him and kind of remind him that, okay, don't lose sight of the true goal here, and that's to get Kite back. And listen, I don't know how people look at it, but, I choose to believe that Killua's known since the beginning, since episode 85, that, Kite's gone. And then, of course, he also sees Kite, the puppet Kite, and he understood that, this is not the same Kite anymore. So I choose to believe that Killua does understand that Kite is gone for good, right? And that's one of the things he's also concerned about once, Gon kind of, finally it admits it to himself, once there's no other options left, right? Because I choose to believe that Gon's been in denial since episode 85 as well. That he's almost deluded himself, right? His mind allowed him to kind of carry on. Because if, that possibility isn't there, if that possibility isn't present to Gon, then yeah, he's going to fall apart. So it's, his psyche almost kind of, keeps him in the game in that sense, as delusional as it might seem. But then, of course, going back to Killua's perspective, yeah, it's quite a tightrope act, isn't it? He was almost kind of forced into stepping in at times because, if he doesn't, it could be really, really quite messy, to say the least. Because, he's got his own fears, right? That, saying the wrong thing or, again, wrong thing from Gon's perspective could really damage this friendship. I mean, you do see that by the end of it, it is damaged. The friendship has been damaged a bit. But again, that being said, that's how friendships can be. There's fights. Things get heated, right? Sometimes, things can come to blows, right? I thought maybe, Killua might have to physically step in to stop him. And then, maybe there could be an altercation there. But the thing to remember here is that just like Gon doesn't have a lot of experience here in how to handle this, his first true loss in, his mentor figure, someone who has a direct attachment to his own father, right? Someone really quite important to Gon. And I think Killua as well, right? Even though, Gon ends up saying that really hurtful thing to Killua in that state, you see that he just doesn't know how to deal with it, right? He's got no experience with it. And then you could say the same thing about Killua, right? Killua doesn't have experience with friendship. This is his first run at it. He doesn't know that, these kind of things can happen. That, it's commonplace almost, these kind of arguments, heated arguments and, difference of opinions, though this is quite an extreme case of it, things like this can happen in a friendship, in an important friendship, friendships that matter. You can have off days, but then, at the end of the day, you're still there for each other. Killua doesn't know this. To him, this might be feeling like it's all falling apart. There's no coming back from this. Right. So, that's one of the unknowns in the shot, in the final shot, the lack of Killua, who's walked out of there. Right now, I firmly believe he walked out, once he saw that, okay, Gon is, he is calming down as much as he can, I suppose. He's got that deadpan look in his eyes and he sits down. He's like, all right, I'll just park myself here for an hour. I think after that, Killua felt the need to remove himself from that situation for a bit. So once he saw that, okay, there's no danger of Gon lashing out for at least an hour, let me step out for now. I've just got to, step out. It's that, or he's kind of, made a choice there, right? It hurt him so much, perhaps, that he's decided, okay, I'm just going to go and help the others, because an hour is a long time to just sit around as things are playing out outside, right? You see the Monta to Yuppie situation, right? You see Melioron is certainly trying his best to assist. I saw his close run-in with Welfin in the last episode. So yeah, he felt that his job is to go out there and help anyone he can help, right? From the extermination squad. So he's out there, maybe Killua's thinking the same thing. By the end of this, okay, it is what it is. Now I've got to step out and I've got to go help others. Because, it appears that I'm really not needed here, right? Gon had the control. Hell, at times he's telling him, I asked the questions, Killua. Hold on, hang back. I truly felt that he's going to be the one in control, and he was. So yes, us, the audience, knows that, this is a really intense and extreme, situation, but, it doesn't mean it has to be the end of a friendship. But again, Killua doesn't know this about friendships. Right? And, it's heartbreaking from all angles, isn't it? To see Gon in that state, Gon lashing out at his best friend, and cutting him really quite deep with his words, given everything that Killua has actually done for him, things that Gon doesn't even know about. You think back to Ramot and that whole incident. Though, of course, Killua made the choice to kind of keep that to himself as well, the needle as well. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, you look at all three parties, it's just sad all around. It is. You look at it from Neferpito's angle and the situation she finds herself in, really desperate situation, right? And she just does everything that she can to try to convince Gon to, give her some time. Please just hold on. I mean, she's more than open to just offering up most of her body, right? Anything that's not necessary for the surgery, just so she can convince him. And she means it. There's no trickery here. Some of the expressions you see on Neferpito's face are not expressions that I thought I would be getting back around the first time I saw her, right? Episode 85. It's one of the most, captivating and, terrifying character introductions of the anime, right? Her first appearance. But look at it now, man. Look at it now. It's such a jarring sight for Gon that it breaks his mind. And kind of touching up on the really incredible character acting animation again. It's so crucial and critical here because it absolutely tells you a story, right? Just looking at Gon's expressions, because at times you can tell that he's feeling shame. He's feeling that guilt because, at times he understands, oh my God, okay, I've been this close to actually attacking someone defenseless, someone innocent that's being healed as well, right? And that's around the time he just starts to stagger and he falls over. Again, it's done a number on him. But then he chooses to double down again and, starts firing up the Jijenkin. And, the thing is, even though Killua does ultimately arrive at the conclusion that, oh, okay, hold on. Neferpito is capable of something like this. She is healing Komugi. And then, again, he goes through the whole process of, okay, this is how it all played out, right? And now, she's been ordered to protect Komugi, to heal Komugi. Though, actually, no, I should take that back, right? It wasn't an order. It was more of a request. I'm counting on you. That's why it's just so important for Neferpito as well. That nothing happened to Komugi in all of this. Even Killua needed a bit of time to actually process it, right? Around the first time he finally begins to clock it, he's like, hold on. That's how it appears, but Neferpito is not someone who could be capable of this, right? It even took Killua a few moments, but then he ultimately does arrive at the right conclusion, right? That indeed she is healing Komugi, and that ultimately it was their side that caused this injury, the dragon dive specifically. And then if you shift to Gon's perspective in all of this, as Killua is asking him to, hold up, you can see that Gon's hurt. He feels hurt that his best friend just is not able to see how important all of this is to him. That's how Gon might be looking at it in that moment, right? That, he's not getting the support of his friend, that he's not unconditionally just backing everything I'm about to do here. And, that notion I brought up in last episode's discussion about, Netero and Xenozolodic coming across that situation, really unexpected, shocking situation that ultimately it would be inhumane to engage right now, right? And they end up choosing to hold off. That's not the case here. Gon is open to it, right? Yes, there's a lot of conflicting emotions, and listen, understandably so, because there's a lot of confusing, complicated situations at play here, and they lead to really confusing and complicated emotions that this kid is not equipped to tackle in this moment. He's just not, right? And that's the reason, I really wanted to emphasize this idea of approaching it with a level of empathy. Because listen, it's still our Gon. I'm not trying to, give up on Gon. As damning as some of his behavior might be in this one. The thing is, I speculated this idea of, possibly losing the Gon that I love and that I've known this whole time, right? You can see that Killua has the same concern. And he does not want Gon to, become someone else entirely or lose himself entirely to this obsession. I mean, the contrast between Gon and Killua is certainly on showcase, because on one end, you do have someone like Gon who is completely guided, dominated by his emotions. And, these emotions do make him look for evidence that confirms the things that he already wants to believe, right? Making him see what he wants to see, right? Because, there's moments here that he chooses to reject certain realities. And then, I can kind of bring in that idea of a negative change arc, the disillusionment arc, rejecting reality, rejecting the new truth, and just latching on or doubling down on the things that he believes to be true. But then on the opposite end, you have Killua, right? Rationality, right? And that is the ability to counteract these types of emotions, to counteract these emotional effects, right? To think instead of react, to open your mind to what is really happening as opposed to what you're feeling, right? That's how Killua functions. And that's why they are yin and yang. Right, Gon is not capable of that approach at this moment in time, right? It's not to say that Gon is not intelligent. He can be highly intelligent and sharp in certain situations, right? I've seen it on displays. It's a Hunter exam arc. But in this case, in this type of situation, a situation that he has such a transactional outlook about, he's just not able to cross that bridge, ultimately. Listen, at the end of the day, he does kind of reach a compromise, right? Again, through Killua's interjections, his reminders about Kite, and then also, Neferpito's display, her submissive display, right? Offering her arm, an arm for an arm, right? And then she even, mentions any other limbs, anything to, actually convince him that, okay, I'm not going to go back on my word. And I believe her. I do believe her. But then again, that being said, you do kind of have to look at, okay, an hour from now, how are things going to play out? So, okay, Komugi is going to be out of danger, hopefully, and then she'll just accompany Gon to Beijing, right? But I'm just looking at the actual, I don't know, just the actual notion of that. How exactly is it going to play out, step by step, and all of that? Because again, if you look at it from Gon's perspective, he's not going to trust her. So it'll be interesting to see if there's anything else that might be at play, right? As far as Gon is concerned, in kind of making sure that she stays in line. Again, I believe she is going to be staying in line. Again, staying in line from Gon's perspective, that is, accompanying him to Beijing. And fixing Kite. She knows she's not going to be able to bring Kite back, but it doesn't matter at the moment. At the moment, the only thing that matters is Komugi and her safety, and just healing her, right? But again, she doesn't know Kite by name either, right? But the thing is, she knows the boys. She knows their faces. She's seen them, right? Unless she just doesn't remember them. Is there a possibility of that she doesn't actually remember Gon and Killua, like their faces, because it was so sudden? The one thing I do know is that she doesn't know Kite's name. Actually, listen, I can't even say that, because maybe during that night, the all-night battle, maybe he, at some point his name does come up. Maybe he does tell her her name, his name, sorry. I don't know. But then again, you kind of go back to the opening, you see that at first, they show us Gon, or his perspective, him introducing himself once again. Do you remember me? I'm Gon Freaks. And even there in the presentation of that, usually anytime I get him introducing himself, it's always so jovial, right? Just the voice acting itself, he's always got a big smile on his face. I'm Gon Freaks, right? Here it's a different type of introduction, right? I'm Gon Freaks, and I will have my vengeance. It truly felt like that this time. I mean, since that episode, since that night in the NGL, the buildup has been there, right? Gon wants to restore equilibrium, and he feels or understands how exactly he's going to achieve this rebalance, right? And like I said, it's really quite transactional, really quite binary, input and output. I go in there, I come across that monster, and then, just step by step. But then you see in this episode, as things don't, really quite play out how you expected them to play out, right? There's this clash of forces behind those intense eyes, right? This internal tsunami of conflicting and complexing emotions, right? There's this push and pull of instinct and reason. And like I said, it's doing a number on him. And isn't it interesting that the thing that is so fascinating to us as audience members, Neferpito's own growth, her emotional intelligence, her compassion, right? Everything that's kind of happened off screen, if you look at it from Gon's perspective, he doesn't know anything about, Komugi and the king and, Neferpito's role in all of it and how it affected her. You see that all the things that all of us love to see, through Neferpito, right? And her approach to all of this and her, again, compassionate approach, every single aspect of that is agitating Gon. Everything about it. Right? He hates it. He hates it that he walked in on this, right? He hates it that it's not a clear-cut target that he has been imagining and visualizing for, I'm not even sure how long at this point. I've kind of lost track of how long it's been since they left the NGL on that night. In Gon's mind, there's no room for nuance. There just isn't. He only has one, expectation of Neferpito, and that, she's a monster and that she is going to be a monster once I go in there. But that's not the case. It's not the case. And, he's completely just losing his mind over this. He's like, how could you possibly save someone, right? At one point, it's almost as if this is around the time he's got this deadpan look on his face before he truly kind of freaks out and rages out, right? He's like, what do you mean you have to save something? Like, it's just not registering for him. It's making no sense. It's like, how could you possibly think of saying something like that, And then, of course, a little bit later on, once he does kind of have this really intense emotional breakdown, he's pointing at her. And then again, you see the tears and the incredible performance. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you saving her? After doing everything you did to me and Kite. He hates it. He hates it. He's still not really able to get over that idea, right? It kind of came up back in the York New City arc as well. He has some choice words for the Phantom Troop and, Nobunaga in the arm wrestling match, right? He had quite a damning appraisal of them. And he's really, really quite open about it as well, right? He's not able to really understand that notion, that idea that people are capable of doing things for the people they care about. But then at the same time, it's all a matter of perspective. From Neferpito's perspective, these are outsiders coming in, right? And they pose a potential threat to the queen, right? Who is going to give birth to the king. So, you go back to episode 85, yes, from Gon and Killua's perspective and Kite's perspective, monstrous being coming at him, right? Especially if you look at it from Gon's perspective, because of the person she ends up taking away from Gon, his tether to his own father, his closest link to his own father. Kite's a big deal to Gon. Even though, 2011 Hunter x Hunter kind of fumbles that, right, by not including that in the opening segment of the series, or the opening episode rather. But I'm glad that I do get to experience the true opening, right? The true importance of Kite to Gon. But the thing is, I really feel like even if I didn't get to see episode 1 of the 99 version of Hunter x Hunter, I feel like I still would have understood, why exactly Gon is so torn up about losing Kite. It's Gon's nature. He's quick to, become friendly and protective of his friends, of his mentors, people that mean something to him. And Kite, through his attachment to his own father, means quite a bit to Gon, right? I think I still would have understood. Why exactly he's so torn up about this. Though, you'll have to let me know. It's possible. I'm sure that, for some people, it might feel like, it's a bridge too far that, Gon is getting this obsessive, getting this upset about, Kite. But then, speaking of the attachment to Kite and the importance of Kite, listen, Killua learned quite a bit from Kite. You could see that Killua respected Kite. So, it certainly cuts deep, Gon's sentiment that, okay, this doesn't mean as much to Killua, right? His dismissive attitude, it is certainly disappointing, right? And it's just a painful scene altogether. You see the shot of Killua, you see his lip just quivering, right? And then he just kind of holds it back. I feel like, this is another case of him kind of pausing his emotions, kind of just staying in the moment. this, there is going to be a release for this at some point. Killua is going to feel the aftermath of everything that happened in there, right? It's going to hit him at some point. Emotionally, it's going to affect him as well. But yeah, at that point, he understood that he has to be the one who simply has to be calm and collected, right? He has to be that anchor for Gon at this moment, right? I know I keep saying it, but his tether, before Gon is lost forever. So yeah, of course, it's really quite disappointing, and it can have damaging, long-lasting effects on that friendship. Perhaps his dismissive attitude towards Killua, it still doesn't erase that Gon thinks the world of Killua. But yeah, now there's some interesting setup here. How exactly are these two going to reconcile, if they even get to reconcile? Who knows, man? Because there's still a next phase to this, right? And the next phase is Gon actually finally coming to terms with the loss of Kite and his reaction to that. It was kind of hinting at it in this episode, this really different type of aura that's emanating from Gon. I brought up this idea of Neferpitou still being quite formidable. I think at their current levels, once Neferpitou is able to use her Nen again, if they are actually to fight, right? If Gon does actually attack her and she's compelled to defend herself, she could easily kill Gon. She still can, right? But I don't know. I think this has had a major impact on Neferpitou as well. Perhaps the misery that she caused, though again, from her perspective, she's in the right to go after them. I don't know. I'm just not picturing the same Neferpitou anymore. That she's not just going to go back to being, that early Neferpitou I saw around the time she first came into the arc, right? Things have changed. And, our outlier, our third-party Komugi has been at the heart of it all. But if I am to speculate a bit about, that moment, that inevitable moment of Gon finally coming to terms with the loss of Kite, right? Finally having to face it because there's no more hiding from it. Yeah, I think, it'll be similar to some of the outbursts that I've seen here, right? But, for him to actually defeat or potentially even kill Neferpitou, I think it would require something that I simply have not seen yet. And again, they kind of hinted at something in this episode, again, given his aura, the type of aura that's emanating as well. But yeah, the only chance I see of Gon actually, badly injuring her or actually killing her is it's got to be something I haven't seen yet. And given his unstable reactions in this episode, right, it's going to be magnified tenfold, perhaps, once he truly understands that Kite is gone. There's tremendous shame and guilt attached to all of this, right? That he played a big part in Kite actually, essentially dying on that night. And, for him, it's all about, fixing it. And, this is someone who's used to getting the things he wants for the most part. I've seen it, through his stubbornness, through his selfish approach at times, right? I've seen it since the Hunter exam arc. That's a stubborn little fellow arc Gon, isn't he? But this time, it appears that he's not going to get the thing that he wants, right? It's not going to be as simple as a transactional input-output. Let's fix it. And then even beyond that, you think about Jing in all of this, right? Gon perhaps feeling ashamed that, this person that is, that's essentially so close to Jing, died because of his own, inclusion in all of this, right? How can I possibly face Jing after I got Kite killed? And the thing is, going into this, some of these hunters, these experienced hunters, people like Moral and Nov perhaps, they understood. Moral mentioned something about, or Nov actually mentioned it. This is on the train, they're kind of assessing Gon's, disposition, his approach, that, ultimately he's saving himself for the true target, right? His nemesis, once, he comes across this monster, then he'll truly kind of unleash. It's almost as if, I'm not saying they're at fault for not kind of stepping in, and kind of, talking to him and his emotions and all of that. But, they decided that, okay, it's a good thing that, he can use that, right? Because again, at the end of the day, Neferpitou's the enemy, right? A dangerous enemy at that. Because let's not forget, at the end of the day, even if I happen to really like Neferpito and I really, hope that she can come out of this alive somehow, even though, I don't know, it just feels like the chances of that are slim. I feel like, it just, I don't know, just doesn't feel right. At the end of the day, she is one of the royal guards, right? It's as simple as that. Hell, all of them saw a glimpse of how Gon could be once he does come across Neferpito, right? This is around the time Morl asked him to show him, right? Pretend I'm your enemy. I'm the person who took Kite from you. They saw all of this, that he has this in him. Hell, at some points, even Killua is telling him to, stay focused on your target, Neferpito. And like I said, I don't think that's going to be an issue. And as expected, it's not an issue. He's laser focused. But then, of course, once Killua had a bit more information, right? As things changed, he understood, okay, it's not the same anymore. It's just not. But speaking of Neferpito, I just loved everything about her in this episode. The fearful determination, right? That whole aspect of protecting Komugi like it's one of her own, right? Killua just sees it as well. The sense that he gets from this, the energy that he gets from this is of, again, like a mama bear. And I said fox bear because, again, it's kind of reminiscent of the fox bear incident as well from earlier on in the anime, both 99 and 2011. You see throughout the episode that she always has that arm up, right? Even though she breaks one of her arms, the forearm, I believe specifically after she dislocates her left arm, she's always got the right arm up. Isn't it just so incredible to see that sight? And there's that one frame, it's a frame that had me clapping. It's of her protecting Komugi, right? It's as Killua kind of figures out, okay, this is essentially, a mother protecting her children, right? That sentiment. And there's that frame of her in front of Komugi. Just think about it. Just remove the context and think about that image. Her protecting this innocent human, right? And you kind of look back to Neferpito from, earlier in the series, around the time she's first introduced. Look how things have changed, man. Look at this, right? She's desperate. She's just on edge. She's fearful, yet determined to protect this person because it is someone so integral to all of these, changes within someone that is important to her. And the fact that, Komugi has had that kind of impact on the king, on King Meruem, just through that, Neferpito has taken to Komugi as well, I believe, right? That, okay, if this person means that much to my king, that she can impact him in this capacity, then yeah, she's a friend of mine. I firmly believe that, that she's taken to Komugi as well. See, that's a sight that they simply did not expect, even Killua, right? Chimera ants. This Chimera ant specifically as well, one of the royal guards, one of the most ferocious and monstrous of the Chimera ants, is protecting a human, right? The lines have been blurred. They've been setting that up since the beginning. There's nuance, right? It's a bit more complicated than just monsters against humans, because ultimately, humans are just as capable of being monsters. There's monsters on both sides, right? And there's good people on both sides. There's capacity to change on both sides. At one point he ends up saying this thing. It's interesting though, right? In this state, again, this compromised emotional state, he ends up kind of, going back to the default setting of just, considering Chimera ants, these things, right? And he establishes this idea of them, back around the time Killua, Gon himself and Kite are kind of running through some of these ants, right? And he had some choice words then as well about, these ants that treat their friends in that manner, right? That it's easy for him to actually take them out and all of that. And then of course Kite's concern that followed. But you see that, things like this can happen, out of character things, because, Gon is really friendly with other Chimera ants, Ikalgo, Melioron, right? Yeah, here he is calling Neferpito this thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I can only speak for myself. I really, really felt for Neferpito as well in this situation. I really did. It'll be interesting to see how others felt about the whole thing. I'm sure that most people, the majority of people did not want Gon to actually, attack a defenseless Neferpito and, subsequently also injuring and, essentially killing Komugi as well, right? But again, if you're to look at it from Gon's perspective, it's incredibly frustrating, right? he said it himself. It's just not fair. You know, why couldn't you just be that monster from that night in the NGL, the monster that I needed you to be at this moment? And yeah, then I've yapped about it long enough. I'd say at this point, I've seen the effects of it on Gon. Though, you know, at least by the end of it, he's calmed down. You know, again, he reached a compromise, but you know, this type of calm it's scary as well. You know, the look in his eyes, you know, he said, I'm fine now. He's completely not fine. But yeah, it's scary. It really is. And I still fear for Komugi. Sorry, not Komugi. For Neferpito. Isn't that insane just to think about that possibility, that I'm afraid for Neferpito at this point instead of Gon. But yeah, I think I'll end it off there, folks. But you know, the thing is, it's a type of episode that you can kind of go back to on multiple occasions. But yeah, it's an incredible episode. It's incredible television altogether. It simply is undeniable. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page, and you know, possibly supporting the channel as well. The links are in the description and the pinned comment, also links to social media if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.